Hello. Yesterday I watched a couple of videos from Owen Macdonald, and I watched a video from Bering that seemed to be uh, responding to Owen Macdonald's video. The topic was gender, and one of the frustrations that I have when I watch videos about gender discussion is that the folks that seem to be in opposition don't really use the same definitions, and so there's a lot of talking past one another. So I heard Owen Macdonald say, you don't have any scientific evidence to support the notion that gender is binary. Uh, I, you'll forgive me if I've gotten that wrong, but I think that's his position. And what disturbs me about that statement, or yeah, that statement, is that his definition of gender is that it's a social construct, that it's not based in some kind of biology. So I'm not sure what kind of science you could get to support that. Would it be a social science? It wouldn't be biological science because biology is concerned with biology, and so if it's a social construct, don't you need sociology or something like that? Whereas the folks that are arguing that gender is binary are often, I think, really talking about biological sex. They're talking about two X chromosomes versus an X and a Y chromosome. They're talking about genitalia. They're talking about real differences that are observable uh, uh, physically, and tendencies. But whenever you start to go down the path of tendencies and aptitudes and things of that nature, then it's really fuzzy because a lot of that stuff, if you imagine that human beings start out with a biological template and that culture and learning and experience can override that biological template, then some stuff has got to be either cultural or learned. I would prefer saying learned. So when you're talking about aptitudes and tendencies, it is arguable how much of that is actually rooted in biology and how much of that is cultural. And for the latter, how much of that culture is based on biology in the first place because of a natural uh, tendency or aptitude. Well, anyway, I just wish that folks would establish their definitions first, like Owen Macdonald and Bering could establish their definitions. That way they could do less talking past one another and actually find out if they can agree on a definition and then find out where they agree and where they disagree. So I'd find that much more interesting. Just to follow up on what I just said about the biological template there, human beings are special in that we can hold our breath. Um, it's natural. We've obviously got the biological apparatus to breathe without thinking about it, but we can hold our breath consciously. Similarly, we can sit through a tattoo, uh, whereas if we lean on a hot stove, we'd be inclined to, move away very quickly. That's our biology. But we could override that and get a tattoo, go sit through the pain. Of course, the extreme example were those folks that set themselves on fire some time ago. Um, how could you do that if you couldn't override your biology? So I think this provides evidence that we can override much of our biology. But I think it's safe to say that we start out with a biological template, uh, and that's not going to be universal. It's not going to be the same for everybody because evolution, mutation, there are differences. Um, but the degree to which that biological template might have stubborn bits that we actually can't override with learning or culture or experience, that's going to be different for everybody too. So you could have every different combination of this. You could have somebody who their biology gave them a very neutral, uh, let's say, position on sexuality. They maybe were attracted to. This isn't to do with gender here. I'm going now into sexuality. Maybe they would be more inclined to be attracted to, if they were a biological male, maybe they'd be more inclined to be attracted to females. Um, but it's a very soft position. So perhaps later in life they learn something, or maybe there's a role model who really goes the opposite way, and uh, they then that learning can override that very soft biological position that they had, and maybe they become a homosexual. Or maybe and I remember every combination is possible. Maybe they have a very stubborn position. Maybe they had a biological position where they were homosexual, and it's a very stubborn part. And then, despite the best efforts of all the family members and uh, folks that wanted them to be heterosexual, it's not going to happen. It would never happen. So I think there's every sort of combination in there. Um, I just gave two extreme examples there, but anyway, I think it's useful to remember that human beings are complicated. Our brains. Have you ever had a lucid dream? Those things are ludicrous examples of how sophisticated the human brain is. Uh, it's magic. It really is magic. It's not supernatural, but it's magic. Um, so I think it's very difficult to really know what's what when we're talking about the human brain. Until somebody makes a brain, which I'm trying to do, um, we're not going to be able to say one way or the other just how it works and just what's what. All right. Goodbye.